Oh my gosh.
Y'all are in for it. This is it. 5 years in. This is a moment. Mark this on your calendars. This is where it all changes.
Oh,
You are about to have the experience of a lifetime, the ride of a lifetime. The gentleman you are about to meet represents the pinnacle of humor, grace, intelligence, courage, creativity, and economic power. He's a man among men, a family, a spiritual leader. So much we can't even say in this introduction. Greg and I are just charged beyond belief to present to you this interview, this conversation. Stay through the whole thing. It right at the very end, it gets really, really good.
yeah. It's good all the way through. We had some technical trouble, so just we'll clip out that, but you'll know it's there. The gentleman's name is Dr. Glenn Toby, and this is a ride. This is a real ride.
Remember to support Blast, Compton Cowboys, subscribe, share, and do your best. This is the life you got.
Amen.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Zeker wegen them.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
And we're live with another ride with Moped Outlaws. And today we are very honored to have with us special guest, Dr. Glenn Toby, who is a manager, hip hop artist, doctor, author, and a survivor.
Among many other things. Thanks for coming by.
Pleasure to be here, guys. Get on the moped. Let's ride.
All right. So much could be part of this discussion. You have created so much in your life. You've rendered from this depth of houselessness to the pinnacle of human communication. Watching your TED Talk, seeing what you've created in the world is really inspiring. And so what's challenging you today?
What's challenging me today is how, if you look at on a macroeconomic and microeconomic level, the changes, right? The fiscal and financial changes with wealth creation, markets going down, markets going up. The money piece is inspiring that there is enough wealth to help change the world. Technology is moving at the fastest speed. Humanity's not moving as fast to reach backwards to bring everybody forward to a space to have a better life in the future. I think there's too much discourse. I think the narratives are indirectly affecting people in groups versus everybody governing their own mindset, their own spirit, and their own lifestyle. I think that we're in such a popular culture that all of these gifts of opportunity, from AI to having more information about one another as a collective people, I don't think we're getting the transformation that we could get having all these gifts and tools.
Do you think part of the transformation needs to be an acknowledgement of differences? And just to be very specific, I'm involved in the high school here in our county with racial equity. And what I'm seeing happen is a desire to erase that conversation. And it's coming from a very intellectual academic place. It's So I'm wondering, sir, in your experience,
what are my thoughts? My thoughts on that are there's two pieces for some of us. Ideologically and philosophically, many people could say people of the Jewish faith or Jewish people were rewarded X amount of dollars from World War II. People could say Native Americans were rewarded something, but it's not an award. Depending on where you're going, it's not a reward to prove where you're going. I think indigenous people, people of color, haven't been giving that same keepsake, that same money. But we can't sit here and look at the calendar and talk about what we haven't gotten. We have to mine the gold, use the pressure to make the diamonds that we need to be collectively as individuals and specifically races and subsets. And we have to become our own government. People talk about who's in the White House and who's the president and whose leadership. I lead from within. I govern my own house. I'm my own legislative body. I'm my own minister of defense, finance. I set the trend and culture. A lot of these discussions are ideological or philosophical, and each person should be allowed to feel and say what they want. Does the system have the money to pay for things that have happened ages old versus if we need money immediately now? We can take economic disparity, we can take crimes of humanity, whether it's against black, white, Irish, everybody suffered, and we can put it into one pool and have it generalized as to human need instead of race and time. The time is not just 400 years of slavery or um, Asian people who were in prisons or the Indians whose territory we have collectively benefited from. Let's talk about the collective benefits and let's talk about what's hindered us. Now that we're in a space to change, we just put all this stuff in a pot, have nice discussions, and work for a better tomorrow to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself. We can't sit here and make yesterday the number one cause and the number one issue that we have. The greatest issue we have is tomorrow by what we've learned from yesterday, what we're doing today to make a better tomorrow.
There was something implicit in what you began with that is about the role of personal responsibility. This idea that the collective is formed out of individual intention, endeavor, consistent action. What are things like the book bank doing to foster that in youth culture and people who need to come up into themselves?
Well, the Book Bank Foundation, we've been around for about 29 years. I was inspired to do it because I experienced youth homelessness at 8 years old. Bounce around a little bit, loving family, ethics, morals, spiritual principles, lots of love, hard work. Um, and we bounced around till about the seventh grade. But my job was to always outwork somebody. And when I mastered outworking myself, I started to become a master at my craft in many different areas. At the Book Bank Foundation, we serve the lost, the lonely, and the forgotten, all races, ages, economic, um, demographics. And we believe that a help up is better than a handout because when we're helping you up, you're pulling yourself up when you get there. We'll meet you where you need to be, not necessarily where you are. And we do that with critical thinking, with programs we have. We have a flight school that's going on in 2 weeks where we take youth from the age of 12 to 19, hosted by Dr. John Addison, who's an airline pilot, one of the captain, amazing brother who has brought people in that space to teach them about career opportunities, discipline, and what you can do. We have a food campaign, which program, which is called Groceries to Grow, and we deliver groceries directly to people's homes, or they meet us in a central area in the community, and we give them information on dieting, budgeting, and shopping, and we provide them with good organic food, and they have a certain period of time to get it together so that they can go out. They're getting the groceries, but they're going to grow to be able to be stewards of their own space. And we have one block at a time where we clean up the streets. We're going into all of these little areas with food deserts, a lack of reading or reading aptitude, or even economic disparity. And we talk about the human engineering, which can not just be the blueprint for you to be able to find the pathway, your human, your spiritual GPS to drive you where you got to go, comes back to the same thing. Think like a master, work like a slave.
Do you think that these emotions of anger, what we'd say are shadow aspects of the id, are actually tools to guide one's spiritual path and path of growth?
I think the anger component is real, and those of us who are enlightened or healed, like you mentioned that TED Talk, I just did a TED Talk. It was the greatest healing point of my life. I looked at every single aspect of my life. I was emotional. I was passionate. I wanted to make a difference. I want to die greater than I'd lived. I believe exactly what you say. People can be angry but they shouldn't remain angry. You can be angered to cause. I don't like what happens when I do this. I don't like what happens when I'm angry and I respond this way. We have to have responsibility and accountability. Nothing any other man, country, race, religion, friend, or experience that you don't control is your responsibility. We're responsible for ourselves. We have to look past it and drive through the pain and use it as a weapon against injustice, use it as a tool to kind of build or materials to add to the recipe of success.
Until it dissipates. And then there's something in that space. And what comes into that empty space is usually a very powerful form of creativity.
Well, if sorry to step on you, Mark. I'm thinking of Public Enemy, like because hip hop is a big part of your culture, and it seems like their anger was part of the strength of their wording and education.
I agree. Chuck D, a good friend of mine. When he was saying fight the power, even when he had the S1Ws, um, Professor Griff at one point, just like Malcolm X came on with a strong message about racial equality and equity, and there was a lot of fire and hatred and rage. And then when he went to Mecca, he came back and said, white, black, Indian, Christians, we're all one.
And then
The
they shot
state,
him.
yeah, and then they shot him, but he came to get rid of, and you guys talked about that, the anger, the pain, the suffering, the trauma. I mean, we have to go through it. I mean, praise God, I didn't have to go through it. I was never, even if I'd be upset about things. I never gave another man or another country or another system enough power to affect my life. That's how I transcended through poverty and challenges. So you can't be angry. You could be angered to cause. You can't be bitter. You can't want revenge. And you have to find the collective consciousness or connectivity with people. That's why we're on the show. We're on
Yeah.
the show because of we are respectful of one another. We admire what each of us are doing. And you guys are my brothers. I just met you, my brothers in spirit. Nothing you could say or do would offend me because my soul is tethered to righteousness and goodness. We have to purge ourselves and heal ourselves. Other people's actions and causality in the environment or governance or religion or just sick people who are burdened should take us off our path. We're responsible for our own walk.
There's this element of taking energy, whether that's anger, fear, and transforming it into something else. And a big piece of hip hop history and speakership and authorship is this fundamental thing behind the power of the word. And in religious texts, the thing is said, the first there was the word. And one of the amazing powers of hip hop and public speaking has been the way that the words of people have provided inspiration and the means by which they could alchemize their fear and anger into something more useful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering if you could talk about any moment in time that you were witness to in the creative process with one or another artist who was busily creating their output and what that experience was like for you. What was it viscerally like, and what kind of how did it dawn upon your consciousness? What was the transformative effect on you in that moment?
Well, there are two. One of them was, I had the honor of being a member of LL Cool J's management team. We did the show In the House with Quincy Jones, this album, Mr. Smith, Hey Lover, these hits. The transformation for him wasn't one of anger. It wasn't, I guess he was not politically correct, but he was more on partying, his experiences. We come from in Queens, where I grew up, which was a suburban setting, education, family fun. We talked about those things. So I watched the commercialization and the growth of him to go into selling products, being an actor, being a good spokesperson, making hundreds of millions of dollars in the world of entertainment and still being a gentleman and a leader. That was one form. I watched Chuck D, who would speak, his narrative was racial injustice, policing, politics, religion. And then he narrowed that down to the scope of humanity. And it was shown from him, being hired to be on ESPN, working with Jewish leaders, Muslim leaders, and having an entertainment voice as a leader. This guy lectures like all of us do. We lecture from Harvard to Princeton, we're around the world. So those transformations were more important to me because I watched my brothers and sisters grow of all colors and races and communities. I watched the adaptation of change as people had access to more information and people of different cultures. Being in New York, it was normal. Like the Italians, Hispanic, we all lived together in this melting pot, and we cared more about the Yankees than we did race. We cared more about how good the food was, whether we wanted Greek food, soul food, Jamaican food, or Italian food. Kreplach soup, if we're in the Jewish community. New Yorkers really didn't care. But there are other communities where diversity is not as common, and something that's different can be bad, wrong, or threatening. So there's a mindset. I just watched the transformation of the men specifically, less in the music, because most of the hip hop today doesn't resonate with me on a spiritual or personal level, especially where I am now. But the hip hop of old was about fun, joy, and love, the majority of it. It was really music. Not saying this isn't, but we were speaking from the world that we saw, which was, in my mind, a less complicated world, and an easier world to navigate, if not better.
So my question was actually more personal than that. My touchstone is I was able to see Bob Marley at the Greek Theater in Berkeley. That performance completely reshaped my whole outlook on life. My actual sensation in my body before and after that is really different. And it gave me a sense of my own potent power to bring something into the world. And his career particularly is a great story of that, and yours as well. And I'm wondering if there's a watershed moment where you
Yeah.
felt yourself shift.
There is. I'd say gospel music, churches, choirs, Pentecostal churches, Baptist churches, that's where most of my spiritual um, change was from creativity of music. Because I was in it, I'm one of the founders as a pioneer and a founder. We were going after the music and expressing ourselves as kids, and it wasn't as transformative. Because as hip hop started to commercialize the gangster rap or drugs or slick talking, I couldn't. There was no real transformative value for me except making money, and then I eventually removed myself from it. But mine would be more just churches, loving choirs, um, the gift of song. But I didn't have I didn't have that moment in time that music transformed me, probably because I became the music of my mind and the music of my life, being a musician and a rapper. So I didn't have that experience, but I was able to take my experiences by managing, guiding, and producing music that I think would bring not just value to the listener, but it changed me internally.
You mentioned in your TED talk and even just hanging with us that when you were homeless as an 8-year-old, it was vitally important the morals and spirituality of life were present moment to moment. Can you speak a bit of what your mom shared with you about life that brought that to such importance?
Yeah, I remember one time, my mother, modest, still with us. We were always taught to be humble, love the Lord. Everything was God's going to come. You want to go to heaven, be humble, be kind. And when people were mean to us, whether they were like, look at these homeless people, or they were abusive verbally or whatever, we had self-esteem. So they'd say, look at those homeless people, these bums. My brother and Randall, I would be looking for the bums. We didn't see them. We didn't see the homeless people. We looked for these people. Any name that you called us, we resolutely knew who we were. Um, we didn't have anger because we felt we were above the lowest things. Even at our lowest point, I remember as a child, I never thought I was poor. I never thought I was less than anybody else. I wasn't called to fame. I ended up garnering and gaining fame. I wasn't called to money. I didn't have um, unreasonable desires. So I think the nuclear family piece, although my father's not in the middle of it, the way we were raised and the joy we just had from communication with family and being insulated, I think we have to insulate our families and our communities to some degree in order to protect culture, ideology, and framework until people can critically think. I think I was blessed to have that it just went by me and I never paid anything attention. But what was in my house? Entertainment and learning. I loved learning.
There's an element of some cultural references that we've got going and some data that we have access to, which points to fatherless households being disproportionately large in people of color's community, and that there's some systemic aspects of why that occurs. But in your case, there was a disruption from the external sources, but the center held. Could you speak a little bit about what you've witnessed in how those things come about and what we need to do collectively and individually to maintain those family centers and that holding?
Well, I think it has transcended time. Again, I think technology, popular culture's got everything to do with you and I, what we're all seeing today. But if you look historically, if you take Tony Robbins and Bill Clinton, that father that was in their house, they would have traded that man for Satan.
Or they had Satan. Yeah.
They had Satan. If you took me with no father in the house, because my father wasn't where he was supposed to be in his life, God knows he was removed from mine, I'm hard to beat. It's the type of parenting. It's not the mother or the father. Those are birthrights. It's the parenting, the process. It's the nurturing, even when the worst environment. There's so many men. Bill Clinton will say the same thing. A lot of guys, like, we're wired because we're able to connect with the messaging. Some through artwork, some through academic excellence, some through spirituality, some through nuance. That we're able to adapt and change. Some of it's genetic, some of it is epigenetics because it's gifted to you, maybe through your genes or the way you're surrounded in your family, but there's always going to be winners that rise. I think as it relates to statistics in the single family homes, we know from the 70s to the 80s, from drugs, from which pulled a lot of the dads out of the house, to economic lack of economic opportunities and people not being trained during the migration of the South or from the Caribbean to, hey, have the funding or the money or the aptitude to know how to go to traditional methods. It truly affected the, Black homes and Hispanic homes. But I think there's so in too many people that have thrived through it that it did make a difference. You take a guy like me and many of us, you can drop us anywhere. We're going to win. We're not distracted by discourse. None of these things matter, whether it's a guy that looks like me that says something crazy and I say, "You're not my brother. You're not walking like my brother, so I want nothing to do with you." It could be a guy, it's a Ku Klux Klan. If I saw the guy and said, "Hey, you know what, buddy? All that stuff you said, how do you get those damn sheets so clean? Wow, my dry cleaner sucks. Nice to see you." And then I just pull off. And I drive by again and say, "Hey, there goes my guy with the clean sheets." I don't see hate, guys. I see the glory of God. I see the efforts of my work. I see the struggle that I have to beat myself to die greater than I lived. The rest of this stuff is shit on the wall. And I clean my wall, wash it down, paint it. And if they keep coming in, we change it. I have this oneness of self that took me an entire life to get, that these things are distractions. We can't feed the whole community or lead the whole community unless there's a collective consciousness. I concentrate on myself. I look at these statistical numbers, which kind of not have been a roadmap for me to not do anything. It's a spiritual calling, and we're praying that more people are awakened. We need an awakening, not a wokeness, an awakening.
There's this book that Greg and I read called Course in Miracles. Are you familiar with it?
No, no.
It's an amazing book, and it speaks exactly to what you're talking about. And it's essentially a daily mental exercise designed to purge you of all of those conditionings that prevent you from recognizing your own divinity and your own potential healing. And I mention it because people often find ways to be in conflict around their spiritual centers. And this particular book has a Christian sort of center to it, but it's not necessary for you to be a Christian to actually get the healing from it. And I always try to share it with people of certain intellect and certain heart because I think it's such a valuable tool.
I'll look into that book. It's wonderful. I'm on that journey. That's what I shared on the TED Talk, which people can find on my website at drglentoby.com. I'm kind of excited about inner change, outer change, and affecting the world in these times. This is the greatest time to bring the best of ourselves. And everybody's complaining about all this stuff going on. This is the best time for us to show up and bring the best self.
There is a lot of resistance to the word spirituality or God or all this stuff. And watched a little bit of your film about the doctor. I forget her name, but she's touring her clinic. It really seems that spirituality is the pinnacle of health.
Mm, I agree. I agree. I mean, look at the difference between Dr. Ascari and I. There was a greater calling to the connection than disparity, discourse, or difference. I don't care about as much for me what someone does in their bedroom. I care more about what they're doing in the boardroom. I care less about the words. Are you saying, Lord Jesus, save me from this inequity? Or are you saying, Ahudu bilahimi neshetami irajim? If it doesn't matter how you're saying to remove the unrighteousness, if you're 100% at heart, pure in soul, and we have an understanding, give me a whole bunch of different people that want to win. Give me a whole bunch of people that I don't even agree with that believe in peace and believe in grace and will allow me to thrive instead of someone that looks exactly like me that I am nothing alike. That sounds exactly like me and they're not following their words. We have to find ourselves in other people.
So there's a piece here about your focus, your mindset determines your outcome. How did you maintain that stability in your own life in terms of your thinking and your way of moving internally to create the results that you've created?
I have always known if something's going left and I can control it and it doesn't matter, be still in peace. This is the trick from the devil to make you act like a fool or be angry or go against everything you're teaching. Um, the best way to move somebody, I mean, if someone says something crazy, throws something at, and you're the better person, you just win by default. It's difficult to have that discipline, but I realized there are too many wars that I couldn't win, so I didn't bother fighting. I just got out of the way because what they were offering me, I didn't deserve, and what they were receiving or perceiving from me was not what I was giving.
Mm.
So this undercuts the need for violence in culture, because if you don't step into the conflict, then it dissolves of its own accord. Is that correct? Does that summarize you?
100%. You have to have somebody to argue with. You know what I mean? You can't get in the ring and fight yourself. It'd be a boring fight. Nobody will show up. You'll just be punching in the air. So I'm not here for it. I'm here to build. And if we're completely in the opposite, where you would think we hate each other, we have nothing in common, you're going to find a commonness in me, which is my common good, my common ability to want better, my common ability to struggle for peace, and again, to die greater than I lived. Nothing's moving me off this.
Dr. Toby, we exist in a plane where there's seems to be a gap in leadership in terms of government and how things are conducted at that level. A man of your caliber must have been asked, are you interested in public service in that realm? Do you see yourself at some point in your life being a leader in the civic sense or in the national political scene?
I'm called every month, every year of my life for the last 2 decades. The reason I haven't gone into it, I believe if I went into an election, I'd give it my whole life, and I have systemic methods that would allow me to win an election that we would never discuss rigging. We'd say, look at these sales strategies, these marketing strategies, look at the basic premise that I'm bringing into the marketplace. If the world goes too far south, I might be called. I think part of my ministry is to advise the advisors, lead some leaders by leading self. I think governance and government requires too much compromise and too much trade off. And I don't trade off principles. I'll sit down and give you your opportunity. I'll get out of your way so you can enjoy your graces and your humanity, but I won't trade off my humanity, my ideology, or my purpose ever. So I can't talk to political action committees and money and agenda. I have to speak to the cause. That's why I'd rather do it on the outside of the circle. But if the world called for it, I'd look at it.
Do you feel like we're at an inflection point in terms of the systemic way that our government operates? And what are your thoughts on what a new innovation in that space might look like?
I think much of the change is needed. A lot of people don't like the Leader 47 for obvious reasons, but a clock is right 2 times a day. And there's value in everything. How people say things are one thing, how they do them are another. I've never found a president, gentlemen, that has ever stopped me from getting to my throne.
Hmm.
Mm.
I've never seen the Treasury of the United States, whether they're, I'm talking the Treasurer, I'm talking whether it's the Fed, nothing they do in economics, nothing they do in era is able to take me off of my self governance. Why? I can control my budget, I can increase my income, I can control supply side economics. My trickle down is a trickle up because I don't trickle down, I trickle up with investment, savings, joint ventures, partnerships, and business development. I don't think government should be given that much power. Government shouldn't have that much of a complaint or that much credit. We govern ourselves, and people say every time, govern yourself accordingly, because they're not doing it. They're just legislative and judicial leaders. I govern me, not the government.
All right. So, how do you traverse the razor's edge of personal responsibility for life, one's life, and also these realms of business and politics that are community? And the individual leaders do affect the community in which we live in. So, how do you traverse that still coming from that place of personal responsibility?
Well, let's obviously, I'm a capitalist, but I'm a humanist. And when some of these clowns are doing crazy things and they are gutting out good, hardworking people being selfish, the cowards that get inside information. I'm not going to say where they work, but they get the first information. Everybody on the hill. Oh, I'm sorry. That gets. What happened, guys?
That's all
Oh,
good. We're referring
oh,
to the
sorry.
White House on the Hill.
Oh, okay. So
Could be in the South.
could be in the South, but the deal is this though. I'm not a hypocrite. When you're going super crazy, saying that you hate this guy, this is your bud, I'm gonna short the stocks when you boys are shorting the stock as well. I'm still a capitalist. When it crashes completely down because somebody's saying something so insane and it doesn't make economic sense, I'm gonna go buy low. Um, when you're going to move taxes around or cut things, I'm going to have fiscal austerity and be smart and budget properly. That nothing that any man or government does is going to affect how well I eat. And then I'm going to invest in stuff. Do I need to sell a property and go into a farm and grow my own food? Listen, there's no excuses for not performing at the highest level. If you're operating at full scale, you're in your full blessing, and you have been able to be adaptive to change and attack. Those of us who are suffering, who are handicaps, who are limited in knowledge, wisdom, and access and talent, we have to have a heart for them as long as it doesn't move us too far off of our pathway.
Here's what
We
I
also
got
have to
to
be careful about enabling their sense of powerlessness. We have to help them find the highest level of performance, even within the framework of their supposed limitations, right? Because that's when a person achieves that sense of power, regardless of their talent level, the limitations of their talent, something is born in them that becomes an internal flame, right? And this is the problem with largesse, is that it can enable a kind of powerlessness. And so we have to balance that with this idea of supporting each other at the same time, calling us all in to the highest level of performance. And that's the razor's edge, I think, that is the most critical. What do you think about the consolidation of markets and what appears to be the ineptitude of antitrust enforcement in our country?
Well, I look at it two ways. I think on a consumer level, we should keep these acts that are in place to make sure consumers are not being compromised unfairly. I think when it comes to massive companies, these guys are weak. Okay, Samsung and Apple go at it. They all their economies, the scale of economy is so massive. Their market cap is beyond the scope of imagination. They ask for more protection from government than anybody else. They're always in litigation. But when you have people that are compromising markets where it affects people from being able to feed their families, keep their jobs, or make it every day, I think that's where we step in. I think when it comes to with these big dogs and these massive behemoth companies, let them slug it out. We go back to the traditional thought of eat what you kill. And you go to market, Amazon versus this new startup, AT&T versus Verizon and T-Mobile. Let them punch it out. Whoever wins wins, but don't trickle that down to where it hurts the consumer. The consumer should not have to um, dealing with massive corporations who are earning tremendous amounts of money and finance them staying at their market cap. They should not penalize consumers and have unfair trade practices that are hurting our core communities. As it relates to the big dogs, fight it out, survive, thrive, or die.
And there's people that use the size of these organizations to make excuses about the potential innovations that they could bring to the market. And they're forgetting the foundational principle that is, if you come up with a unique and innovative idea, it will find its market. And so the power there is to stick with it, to persevere, and to find partners who will bring it forward, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, you talk about electoral process. I mean, the consumer votes for the product. When we're playing these silly little games, people coming into government controlling our lives, no good.
Do you think, like we've mentioned Satan and God and all this kind of stuff? So, just on a broad level, it's I'm fascinated that Apple and all these big behemoths have gotten into the entertainment industry. And from what I hear, it's not a financial choice. They're losing money, but they still want it. Do you think that there is a realm of spirit and control that is maybe even unconsciously recognized that, hey, if we our media can we can control the populace with entertainment?
You know you're right. So if you can't control the money, if you can't control the sale, how long they stream, you can control the culture. You sign 10 big producers, 5 big artists, and line everybody up. You're creating a marketplace. People aren't going to worship. They're not going to shul. They're not going to uh, the mosque. They're not going to church as much as they did many years ago. On an average, there are less and less men in the church as there are women in some communities. So, of course, they're driving sales. They're giving these kids the gun with no bullets. So they are imagining that they're killing one another when they tell these crazy stories. They're promoting drug use. They're promoting failed relationships. They're telling the one side of their trauma. And somebody's sitting back because the cash register is ringing. If there were a healing component, if there were if it were a merit-based system in order to get a record company that you had to stay clean, we'd have a cleaner country with cleaner consciousness, and the music would be a bit different. Imagine if you were a gangster rapper and you're saying, I'm no longer doing this. This is just entertainment. The same way when you watch Goodfellas, De Niro and Pesci did not really put anybody in the trunk of the car.
Mm-hmm.
But in hip hop and rock and some of these spaces, a lot of the collective conversations are based on real things that are happening. And the storytellers are not responsible for anything that comes out of their mouth, and they're not tied to a mission or an agenda. They're sometimes trading both because they don't want to disrupt the cash register. But many of these rappers, even the worst messaging that you hear, they do have a consciousness and a soul for people. They're just caught in a big machine. They're not the ones writing themselves the checks either.
I want to ask about Ryan Coogler's film Sinners.
Oh,
How do you feel about that film and him and his career? To me, it's a heralding of a new realm of possibility in terms of highest level of creativity, and then also the deepest level of cultural resonance with people. Just have you seen the film? What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on Ryan's career?
well, there's 3 things. The first thing is he spoke to so many things. It was amazing how he was able to speak to um, Black people's history in this country and choices. He affronted people and said, hey, you got to make spiritual choices or this is what happens. Whether it's racial discrimination, whether it's bad music, whether it's opening up to cultures that are not God based, whether it's being driven by your sexual and human desires. This man approached and talked about all those things. Some people thought he was only talking to black people. He was only talking to religious people. He was only talking about um, uh, money and greed. He was speaking about all of these different things and just put it out there. And each person was grabbing it where they wanted to take it from. I like that he has a conscience, and I like that he keeps moving. The other piece that I'm most proud of is he was able to alienate and move away from the traditional Hollywood system, to own his masters, to be able to lease the work out, and he's breaking records, and I don't think it'll stop. On an artistic level, what he did visually, taking the technical with traditional good storytelling is masterful. I think he doesn't take himself that serious. I think he's really in the form of art, and he's a purist to the sense of storytelling, and he's going to change the way we're seeing things. I hope he gets better stories to tell, because I think his storytelling could only get better.
Do you have any aspirations to enter into the cinematic experience, to be part of those kinds of groups and funding and developing talent in that arena? What have you done in the past in the visual medium?
Well, in the visual medium, I've had the honor of representing Jason Mitchell, who was in Straight Outta Compton. He played Eazy-E. That did 200 million in sales, ticket sales, and many other actors, from Jason Weaver to Lance Reddick, who was on The Wire. God bless him, he's no longer here. And my current film that I'm executive producing, called Courage to Thrive. Great timing, guys. This is about. I'm having so much fun today. This is about Kameen Samuel, who was the first African American Navy helicopter pilot who went on to serve her country, dealt with, I think, the traditional challenges that a woman would have in business, whether it's racial, whether it's sexual orientation, whether it's the traditional calling of, um, you know, self-sacrifice to serve your country during times of political change, and you as an independent person that has to delegate your personal authority to fight a war, defend the country in times that where there's discourse or the ideology doesn't match up. So I think that she's been able to do that, and she has a thriving business, and she's going to be doing hundreds of millions of dollars. She and her husband, Mark Samuel, they're thought leaders. They have an amazing business, and this movie will be dropped at the end of the year, top of the year. It is amazing. So I love making films, as you mentioned, Dr. Ascari's movie, and I love filmmaking. I love storytelling at that level. Do check it out. You can find it. It's on my website, drglenntoby.com, to learn more about what's going on. Now back to our broadcast.
Well, Courage to Thrive is such a really great concept, just beyond the context you just spelled out. I think that's going to be the title of this podcast.
Wow.
So apropos,
Listen,
right?
Dr. Samuel will thank you for that. I dare you to do it. I'll send
No,
you a
it's
t-shirt for
done.
this.
Whoever edits it will be doing it. And can you say a little bit about what your journey with this particular film has been like, in terms of from concept, script, shooting, and the role you've played, and what the challenges you've overcome as part of it?
Yeah, absolutely. What I think has been great, what's less challenging is you see this woman who is a humanist, loves human beings, that has a coaching business, that she deals with the elite of the world, to a person that can barely afford her, as a doctor who's teaching, who's building businesses. So this amazing human being who's a part of history, who doesn't ascribe to uh, the failing of you as an individual. It's the thriving of you and what systems can be put in place. What are the recipes? That's been great. I think one of the challenges are, we've had a lot of issues from the wars that are going on with the last three administrations, and so many people don't support the United States military in any faction because they look historically at the fallibility, faults, and misses that we've had. So I'm pushing a part of the military, not for recruitment, not for consensus, but because we do need to have defense in our country so that we're able, righteous people like ourselves, we want to think that we are being led to righteousness, or at least practicing it. The United States government, the United States military is a part of our lives. So we're bringing all these things together: humanity, pride to be a patriot in this country. How do we affect it and change it more so? And looking at the stories of these different women who have championed the challenges as women separately in this country, as a minority, meaning numbers, not as a minority, meaning I need help or a complaint, but being not
Mhm.
in leadership as much as the majority, including myself as a majority member of leadership. So these women do this with a voice that is modest and humbling and loving and purpose filled without being a challenge to culture or a cause.
Wow. It's really inspiring to hear about this. I can't wait to see this film. And we'll certainly circle back when you get close to the release date and help. We'd love to talk to anyone involved that you would recommend. We'd love to have them on the show. It's going to be an interesting thing to witness and to see. We're getting to the point in the conversation where we want to start to sort of wrap it up. Greg, are there any other questions that you think are really burning for you before we get to this final question?
I don't
Take the
know.
gloves. Take the gloves off, boys. It's time.
Oh, the
It's
gloves.
time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this is a question, but going back to the film Sinners, that cut scene with Buddy Guy brings tears to my eyes. I've watched that. I think it's about 7 minutes on YouTube. I can't count the times. And when the brother turns, and Buddy Guy says, was that your best date? He goes, oh yeah. Last time I saw my brother, last time I saw the sunrise, and for a few hours, I was free. That
Wow.
line right there kills me, man.
Yeah.
And part of what you said, how in that story and that creative, with all the elements, the music, the way it looked, it captures for me that human aspect that we do know we're divine. That spark of divinity can never be put out.
Yeah.
And on this
Wow.
planet, as it is very hard to remain in contact
Wow.
with that spark.
Yeah. Wow. I think this leads us to explaining to people, if anyone can hear my voice, if the person next to you doesn't agree with you, they push you in ways that are so unrighteous. You can say they're literally Satan, the devil. Tag them. Pray for the enemy. Stay away from the enemy. Have nothing to say to the enemy. The person that's next to you, that is indelibly pouring grace and healing and love and opportunity and respect, pour into them. You don't have to connect. Just know that they're there. Let that pull it over here. We have to stay centered. This is a challenge. Well, I used to say it's the trick from the devil. You're in front of your kids, there's some maniac, somebody's doing something, you're with your girlfriend, your mother. You know something's wrong, guys. Don't show up for this evilness. Stay in the house of God, the house of yourself. We just have to have patience and stay focused. There's so many things on our cell phone every second. Donald Trump did this. This guy did this. Biden did this. Blah, blah. Hey, the man cut you up. We just have to stay still for a second and God's going to show up for us. Obviously, one person is never going to change the entire world. And the entire world doesn't have to change one person.
Yeah, so powerful. I'm now going to add a question before the final question. I recently set up my turntable. It had been in the dust. And I went back to my music studio and I pulled all of my LPs out and brought them home. And I realized as I was going through them that I have like 10 different 12-inch singles from Prince. And I just want to know, what are your thoughts on that man and his creativity? Because so much of it was fraught with this polarity of, God is the primary thing, and then God disappears from his work. And it's this constant kind of evolution, and the level of honesty with which he portrayed his thoughts and his ideas. Just say something about how he impacted you and what your thoughts are about Prince.
It's amazing that you picked him. I mean, if you look musically, here is this light-skinned brother who could be white, could be Spanish, could be Brazilian. Who is this guy, right? Long hair coming in, and the black music department didn't know what to do with him. Popular music, which people call white, there's no such thing as white or black, but this is the categorization. Somebody saw that, okay, this is where this guy goes. He didn't have the big crazy budget. He showed up with his amazing songwriting. You know, you think about the depth of his songwriting, it calls to attention um, Stevie Wonder, Bob Dylan, um, you know, just like this pure ethos, right? And then the guy did whatever he wanted to. He was not driven by popular culture. Popular culture chased him. And then I found out the amount of charity work this guy was doing. He was helping people at the highest levels possible. I think at one point he was a Jehovah's Witness.
Hmm.
And then he dealt with so many people. He gave away countless millions of dollars. He had the guts to stand up and say, "I'm not your slave. I want to be out of the independent. I want to be independent." He was one of the advocates and one of the most formidable people in independence. This guy fooled you, man. He was an amazing human being, and he always reminded me of a humble independence. Barely talked. His interviews were like this: "Yes, I agree." And he'd just smile, answer each question. And you get an interview every 10 years. He'd get up and grab his band and just show up in a town and perform. Love Prince. I thought he was amazing. I thought Michael Jackson was the other side of him. I thought Michael was amazing. I don't believe any of the bullshit about what they put on this guy because it's odd or strange. There's some things that just aren't true. None of the things that we have proven that aren't true are never in the documentary, ever. There's never been a recall. So these were guys that tapped into the spirit of love and good energy and peace. Wow, those great heroes.
Yeah. What a missed opportunity with "We Are the World" for Prince and Michael to be together. But that's water under the bridge at this
Mm,
point.
yep.
Um, Aside from the film you mentioned, what's next for you?
I have a new agency. You know, obviously I was in at an agency. We did $350 million in business with Alonzo Shavers. We did an exit with it. We did Asante's $60 million deal. Damien Robinson, my first NFL player, countless others, NBA players. After selling that company, met an amazing young man, Rakeem Vick, um, Brady Jackson, attorney. We've started a new company called the Winner's Circle. We're doing name, image, and likeness. We're also representing professional contracts with people. And we realize the higher courts have more recently said that universities are able to pay these kids directly from high school levels up to college. And it is so much money that they are not financially, emotionally, or spiritually prepared to manage this kind of wealth. You know, the average athlete usually goes bankrupt or has issues within 4 years. So we're coming to the sports culture and tying it together. Amazing client we represent. Young lady by the name Zoe Brooks, number 35, North Carolina State basketball. She's amazing. Watch her this season. Young heroines like her and young athletes that we're guiding. We're trying to bring sports culture back where the money, the man, and the mission all meet so that people can enjoy sports. And if they don't make it to the pros, they have some money that they can either educate themselves on their own terms outside of the traditional set or become leaders in their community or the world community. That's what the Winner Circle's about.
Got it. Well, we have a question we ask all of our guests.
But before
If
I
you
do have one more question. I'm
Come on.
sorry. This is keeps paining me. Here come the gloves, sir. Um,
Okay.
your last book that you wrote about, what was the attraction for you as a creative in the Asian culture?
Wow. Good one. So, The Asian Power League. This is a fictional novel. It's about Michael Ha Young, who was the son of a businessman. And he came over as immigrants. His family, they owned restaurants, traditional, you know, Asian business. I don't say what they are. I don't say if it's Korean, Chinese, whatever, just pick whatever it is. So this is a young man, and he studies in school and he meets some guys, and he has traditional American guys who are in leadership. They give him a bunch of crappy investments that he has to go through. And this is, he's either at Princeton or Harvard. You make it up in your mind or go read the book. What happens is he thrives through it. He becomes a billionaire while he's working through investment bank, and he goes one summer over to meet with his cousin. His cousin's in a group called the Asian Power League, which is completely fictional, people. I just made this thing up. And during that summer, he has a romantic relationship with the gang leader's girlfriend. and they're about to kill him, but his cousin comes in. They're about to unlife him. I know we'll get blanked here. They're about to unlife him, and he comes in and he doesn't know. He's had too much sake or whatever he's drinking over there, and they swear him in. So eventually he goes through, he becomes a senator, he becomes a congressman, a senator, he runs to become president of the United States, becomes the first Asian president of the United States of America. Now he has to decide when his cousin calls him and says, "We've finally done the greatest takeover, corporate takeover of America. What they've done to Asia from the bombing of Hiroshima, the internment camps, all of these things, right? The discourse of what's happened in the world, the Asian world and the United States of America. Does he come back and make uncounted trillions of dollars, get revenge against America, and allow this Asian country or countries to allow the Asian power league to take over our country? Or does he fight as a patriot, as an American, for what's right, what's godly right, and say, I'm not going to sell out? There's only one way to find out, and that's by ordering this book at Amazon or where your best books are sold.
We'll
All
put
right.
the
Electronic
link
book.
in the chat for the show and in the show notes.
But I'm
Dr.
wondering,
Toby.
why did you choose Asian as the culture that was the fulcrum of the book?
This is the punch of the day, boys. So, exactly what I said. I wanted to write an amazing fictional novel. I am not just a black man. I'm a human first. Hue means Hue, all colors. Everything. I'm everything. I'm a human. So I didn't want to write a book from a black perspective, a white perspective, an American perspective. I went and talked about Asian culture because I'm not Asian. And then nobody knew it was me until we showed the color, this color photo of me, and they said, "Wait a minute, this guy didn't look like he's from Japan, but the book is damn good, and it's
Uh,
selling."
awesome. Awesome. All right. I feel complete.
Maybe it'll be a movie someday.
Hey, who knows? I'll be. Hey, this podcast is going to blow up. You boys are going to be making money. Maybe you'll be investors.
It's good. We need it. We're ready. We are prepared. Thank you so much for your generosity to your community as an example, as a man of faith, and your generosity with us in terms of the way that you've answered our questions and your presence here today. I know I speak for Greg when I say we are deeply touched by the grace of your largesse, your generosity of spirit. And this question we're going to ask you, we ask everyone. It means a lot to us. And we don't take it lightly, although when you hear it, it might not feel that serious to you. Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Both. Can't have one
All right.
without the other.
Got it.
Listen, if we take, so for me, I was a David Lee Roth fanatic.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I love that guy.
when he left the band, I was out.
Yeah.
And to be honest, look at Eddie, look at the entire band. They were never the same, right? Now, at the same time, when LL Cool J, this is before the Wu-Tang era, we need traditional rock and roll. Traditional rock and roll is white music, black music, American music, global music, English music. We just talked about the guys that made it happen on the old. We need all of these art forms. They all have to coexist. None of the American popular culture should wane away from what we have created in culture. All forms of this music have to exist, and the moment it stops, AI will take over, and guys like us will be crying in our soup, boys. We got to keep American culture going. We need to kind of invigorate people playing instruments and getting back to basics so that we can canonize the call of humanity through love, music, and art.
Beautiful.
Real quickly, one of the things I loved about Sinners is he loved music, and it was so evident. The Irish jig, the Southern blues, it was all fire.
Woof! I could watch it over and over. That's one that's on the list. I can't wait to see what he's doing next. This guy is special, you know, and I think he imbues the world differently because he speaks differently. He comes from the most unusual place that you'd think that he's able to leave from where he comes from and can go anywhere on the globe. What a storyteller.
Yeah. Amen. Amen.
All right. It's been a great ride. We'll definitely put all the things in all of the show notes. Thank you so much again for your time today, Dr.
Thank you,
Toby.
guys. I'm honored. And I want to say to the audience, guys, I hope you found somebody or a system that you can connect in like we did today. Continue to not just watch them, but come back and watch this episode a few times. There's a lot of good stuff we put in there. See you in the winner's circle.
See you in the winner's circle.
Recording stopped.